Well, hello guys. I decided to be a complete newbie and ask Google, why do I need to do world building for fantasy novel? And I found this article. So let's get into it. I don't know what the novelry is, but anyway, world building, who, what, where, why, and how. And it's this guy who has very nice hair, Craig, Leyenaar. And I thought, oh, okay, who is Craig? Can't really see. It just kind of, I tried scrolling down to see, barely able to see. It's really long. I wish there wasn't just this, but just like a new page that would go to his like about page or something. I think that would be a bit better. But anyway, this article was written April 16, 2023, so 2 years ago. So it's not that recent, but. So Craig Leyenaar, probably not saying that right, was a commissioning editor at Titan Books, the publisher famous for science fiction, fantasy, horror, crime, and thrillers from authors including Stephen King, V.E. Schwab, James Lovegrove. I'm not gonna go over all those names. Craig also worked with Joe Abercrombie, Hank Green, Patrick Rothfuss, Ursula K. Le Guin. I mean, big names, big names. And so I thought, wait, hold on, what is a commissioning editor? So I looked it up. Publishers Association says a commissioning editor's main job is to find new authors, books, and ideas to publish. Their aim is to build up a publisher's list with successful authors and books. A publisher's list, in quotes, just means the list of titles that they publish. Commissioning editors are involved with a project at each stage. They are the link between the proposal and the finished product. Keeping up with trends and being able to predict their future is an important part of their role, helping them find new products in undiscovered markets. So you can probably say that this Craig guy, in terms of science fiction and fantasy, like he knows his stuff. He knows what's going on. Especially is if he has worked with let's see, he worked with Joe Abercrombie, Hank Green, Ursula K. Le Guin, Ben Aaronovich, big names, trending books. So he probably knows where it's at. I'm hoping that there's not going to be anything weird in this article. It's going to be a very nice. Why world building? World building. Why world building? Why do we need to do it? And who? I don't know what the who is going to be, what, where, and how. So yeah, I usually don't go over the profiles of the people who write the articles, but since it was really right here, I thought, I'll take a look at it. And I didn't know what a commissioning editor was. That sounds like it's different from a literary agent, right? Because the commissioning editor is already inside the publish. Maybe commissioning editors work with agents, like literary agents. I wonder if that's what they do. Oh yes, it says a commissioning editor usually reports to the publisher or editorial director and works closely with colleagues in different departments, as well as building relationships with authors and agents. So, like, if you are a writer and you decide you want to publish, you want to get your book published by a publisher, you first have to query the literary agent, and then you need to not just build a relationship with the literary agent, but you also have to build a relationship with the commissioning editor, which is interesting. And the commissioning editor also has to have a relationship with the agent. It's a very complicated world. traditional publishing world. I'm self-published, so I need to worry about that. So, hi, by the way, my name is Enna, and if you've never listened to / watched one of my videos before, I find interesting, his face is just floating there, it's kind of creepy. I find interesting writing advice articles, mainly fantasy, because that's what I write. And then I read through them with you guys, and we break them down together, and we have a discussion, hopefully. And usually I just type in like, what is writing, what is fiction, what is going on. I'm a complete newbie, so give me something. I'm not a complete newbie, but I want to put myself in the shoes of a newbie. Like, if I had just started writing fantasy, what would I have questions about? And I do, and I am in various sort of Facebook writing groups, and I see a lot of similar questions from newbies, and I decided, you know what, I'm just going to look it up in Google and see what they give us. And there's a lot of weird and bad writing advice out there, so I thought, you know what can we do better? And that's why I started to break down these articles and think, okay, this is what makes a good writing advice article, this is what makes bad writing advice article, what is something that I can do better on my own website, because I have writing advice over there. What is something that, how can I be better for the newbies or for people of different levels? So anyway, that's why I started breaking down these writing advice articles. And if you like this sort of stuff, come along for the ride. Give a little clicky subscribe to the channel. Share it with your friends. I do sometimes find really good writing advice articles. There was one a few videos ago. It was awesome. So you should go check that out. Maybe I'll leave a link in the below. Leave a link below. That's what I'll do. Okay, so we're going to get into this article. World building, who, what, where, why, and how. I want to say who, what, when, why, and how, but it's who, what, where, why, and how. Let's see. Okay, so there's a little bit of an introductory part, so we're going to put that in the introductory part. And then there's a where, the what, the who. Okay. So, one of the biggest questions we get asked at the novelry. What the heck is a novelry? Novelry. Fall in love with the writer's journey. What are you? Organization? Happy people? The Novelry is a writing school for authors founded by Booker Prize listed author Louise Dean. I don't know who that is. I'm sorry, I just don't know. With one-on-one coaching from best-selling authors, in-house editors from major publishers, and direct submissions to the top global literary agencies. We're here to take writers on a complete journey from idea to book deal. Interesting. So it's a school. Oh my gosh, is it expensive? Look at that. It's $1,995 membership for a 1-year membership. It's a 90-day novel class and 6 coaching sessions, the classic storytelling class, and membership for 1 year. Or you could get the almost $5,000 course. This one says the almost $2,000 one says it's 100 plus lessons. And the finished novel course is 200 plus lessons. Welcome call. Oh, you get a nice welcome call. Membership, that's not different. Classic storytelling class. The 90-day novel, 6 coaching, big edit class, 2 editorial sessions, and the ultimate manuscript assessment. Okay, they have even more. Novel development course of $2,495. The big edit class. So that was in the finished novel course. I see big edit class. Or you can get the big edit class by itself. That's 50 lessons. I wonder if this is worth it, you know. $2,000 is a whole lot of money. Oh, I guess they need to make money somehow. But not all writers have a lot of money to go around. I could be wrong. I mean, maybe you do. Maybe you say that it's worth it, but do they have like sorry, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here, but do I have like a what is that called? Where you leave like reviews and stuff. Reviews? This isn't okay. Somebody did leave a review. Why does it have a date on it? September 2024 on this book. If you look at the screen right now. It says September 2024, The Fog. What is this? It's not a book? Let's see. It took me 6 years to write my first novel, but with the Novelry, I wrote a complete draft in 100 days. Hugely addictive course content, but an instant sense of belonging, the tribe. You'll find fellow writers and editor and Louise Dean, the founder and mother hen of the whole writer's den. The Novelry is more than a course. It's a lifestyle, and it's the best investment I've ever made. Of course, they're not gonna... Oh, testimonials. That's the word I was thinking of. Okay, they have rave reviews from real people giving their names. What does that even mean? Rave reviews from real people giving their names. Well, these are the student reviews. Okay. Well, it seems to be that people were taking so long writing this novel, and now with Novelry, it's really quick. The course combines the magic of emotion with the magic of conscious planning. Of course, they're only going to put good reviews on their website. They're not going to put bad reviews on their website. They're not going to do that. I learned to form... Oh my gosh, this moves. Okay. It says here, I learned to form... David Garrett is saying, I learned to form a daily writing routine. I know, I mean, if you want to. But daily writing isn't really for me. I'm like a bulk writer. Interesting. You know, I wonder how these people have done afterwards. You know, are they still continuing this process? Is it actually still helping them? Did they publish? Did they become famous? There's so many reviews here. Like, look at all of these. Are there any people, names that I've seen before? So far, Drabble. All kinds of interesting names. Dr. David Tinnemoff. Why do I feel like he wrote a nonfiction? Why do I feel like that it's a nonfiction book? Hilary B. Catherine Greer. The Greer name sounds very familiar, but I don't think I've seen her before. Cat Lane. We got a B. We got a cat. April Lovefordham. Well, that's an interesting name. Very nice, interesting name. Nicola Berry. I feel like, have I seen Nicola Berry before? Interesting. I mean, I don't see any Guy Zimmerman. I kind of wonder sometimes, what is it with people naming their sons Guy? Like, John Van Rice, Emily Baker, Jennifer Wolfe. feel like that sounds familiar. Sometimes I think names sound familiar, maybe because I've seen similar names, people with similar names on Instagram. But I haven't actually seen those actual people. Let's see. Maggie Huffman, Karen Ritter, Emily Burnham, Terry McConnell, Joe Marco. Interesting. Well, I don't see anything that tells me, I mean, of course they're only going to be putting good reviews up here. So if you are interested in investing in Novelry, you might want to look other places. You know, what happens when I click fantasy and science fiction? So these are the people who are in charge of this section, I guess. Editors. There is this guy. This guy that wrote the article that we're going to look at in a moment. Let's just hold on. Hold your horses. Let's look at courses. No. I just wanted to rhyme it with horses. Founder, Louise Dean. I feel like I've seen her face. She's the Booker Prize winner of the Betty Trask Prize, but what book is it? She started the Novelry in 2017 when it occurred to me that writing was the only art that wasn't collegiate. I don't know. Other arts form working associations and apprenticeships and share learning and skills, but not literature. It made no sense. I invited writers to write with me, and the Novelry was born. Now we share our knowledge. I'm passionate about my writers' work and thrilled to cheer their successes. Okay. What did she write? Becoming Strangers, This Human Season, Idea of Love, and The Old Romantic. What is the one that got the prize, though? I want to know what one got the prize. Oh, who is this? I don't know who this is. Booker Prize. 4 novels. Becoming Strangers is the one that won the prize. Becoming Strangers, a book about a group of no longer young people. Okay. Interesting. So it's a writing community situation, possibly filled with a lot of famous elite people with a lot of money, but we don't know. I mean, it could be, you know, I don't know. Why do I feel kind of like this is a little bit suspicious? Because it's so expensive. I wouldn't pay that much for that. I mean, when you can get, like, I don't know, maybe for some people it's worth it, but it's not worth it for me. I just ask other writers on, like, Facebook if I have any questions. Or Wacky Writers Writing Forum. Anyway, that was a really long tangent introduction. Let's keep on reading, okay? One of the big questions we get asked at the Novelry is how to create satisfying and immersive world building. This is where I stopped, right? Okay. So, sorry about that long tangent. I just got really curious about what the Novelry is. Why does it seem so... It's reminding me of, like, too much of a closed community. Like, people who have the money are going to be using it, but people who don't have the money aren't going to get a chance to join this community. It's like a closed community. I don't know. I just kind of feel like about it, but you know, that might just be I'm just a little too suspicious about things like this, especially if they cost so much. $5,000, good grief. Is it really that worth it? I mean, if you think about, okay, I'll go to school, like a university, to learn how to write, or maybe it might be cheaper. I don't know what the price of universities are in the States, in other places of the world. Okay, so let's get back into the article. One of the biggest questions we get asked, I've already read this sentence so many times, it's a huge part of writing in any genre. The setting is a memorable part of many books, and there are fictional worlds and real places we're transported to at the mere mention of a title. Does anyone else feel chilly when they hear the secret history? No, I haven't read it. I don't like it when people assume that you've read a book and then they mention it. Like when books in their blurbs they say it's a cross between this book and that book, and I'm like, I don't know what this book and that book is. I've never read those books before. I wasn't interested. So why are you talking about those books? Like, it doesn't help me to decide whether I want to read your book or not. I want to just get the blurb. I don't want all this extra stuff attached to it. Well, maybe that's my pet peeve. Fantasy writers and those crafting science fiction worlds are, of course, particularly interested in world building. After all, they're conjuring up not only a fictional world, but often an imaginary world. You can't visit your chosen setting or take a peek on Google Maps. You can't research the terrain or physical landscape, watch a documentary on the culture, or sample the cuisine. But the good news? You get to play God over an entire fictional universe, creating your own futuristic or magical world to roam freely. Plus, readers of these genres welcome an intricate and highly detailed world. You have quite the playground. Okay, I mean, saying good stuff. I mean, yeah, you can't visit your chosen setting or take a peek on Google Maps unless you're taking the real world as inspiration. Like, I have a world that is inspired by Egypt. And Egypt from like the 18th to 19th century. And so maybe I can't look on Google Maps, but I can take a peek I can take a peek at photographs using Google, so it's not like, but I'm not actually there. But I can kind of research the terrain and the physical landscape, like if you're taking inspiration from the real world. But if you're actually creating an entire world from scratch, like just completely, maybe it's another planet entirely, and you have like red sky and blue ground or something like that, yeah, you're not going to be able to go there or take a peek on Google Maps. If you're about to write a fantasy world or you're editing your fictional setting to bring it to life, this article is not one to miss. Our senior editor, Craig Leyenaar, he's talking about himself. Did he write this article, or is he talking about himself in the third person? Because this is weird. Okay, anyway. Our senior editor, Craig Leyenaar, delves into his top tips for creating a brilliant fictional world, especially for those writing fantasy or science fiction. He covers key questions such as how to organize the magic system or religious belief system that orders your fictional society, with rules considered fair and consistent to create a believable world. Okay, he covers key questions. We're going to see if he's covering them. As with this writing of various articles, I see a lot of them, they promise something in the introduction and they do not deliver. We'll see. So whether your story is set on a desert planet or a why am I reading that weird? Post-apocalyptic Earth, whether you're writing fairy stories or dystopia about artificial intelligence, whether you're exploring our class system or gender politics a la The Handmaid's Tale, or simply enjoying the freedom that comes with science fiction fantasy, this one's for you. In this blog, Craig answers the big world-building questions to help you bring your own world to life on the page, wherever you are on your writing journey. Okay, they are just advertising their courses. Their courses of courses. Right here. I'm not going to read it. Is this AI? I don't know. What is this? A snow globe? I don't know. Anyway. Pay attention to your world building. This is still part of the introduction, by the way. First, a word on the importance of both science fiction and fantasy world building. World building is a crucial aspect of the broad spectrum of science fiction and fantasy writing. The believability and richness of your imaginary world can make or break a story. To get that willing suspension of disbelief from your reader, it is vital to make your fictional worlds convincing. So to help you create imaginary worlds your readers want to come back to again and again, here are some of my top tips. They should help you ensure the world constructed by your imagination is believable and immersive. Okay, now it says my. So this introduction part was probably written by someone else. Or he did write it, but he had to talk about himself in the third person first. I don't know, that's kind of weird, but whatever. It's not a big part about this article. That's not the point about me reading this article. It's not to say, okay, you're writing in third person and first person. Be consistent. I don't know what you're trying to do. That's not the point of reading this article, but that kind of feels a little bit weird. World building is a crucial aspect of broad spectrum of yes. Believability and richness can make or break a story. That's true. Believability, especially like if something in the fictional world is really not believable, even in terms of that fictional world, like the world's rules, even in terms of that, if it's not believable, then it really takes you out of the story. Like, what is going on? Can that even happen here? I don't know. But I don't know. There's a cat crying outside. This cat has been at it, looking for a girlfriend since like February. He's desperate. He's always out there though. Sometimes he comes out in the afternoon, like around 2 or 3. But often I hear him around 5 or 6 in the evening, which what is the time right now. As you might be able to tell if you look at my screen, or you might not if I decide to cut off the bottom. So, to help you create imaginary worlds, we're going to top tips. Okay, so we're going to get into some tips. So, I don't know what this who, what, where, why, and how part, like the how might be the tips, but why is going to have tips. So instead of asking why are we world building, it's going to be more tippy. So what would that be? Not entirely sure. So I guess we'll get into it. The where of world building. For the first step in your world building process, I'd suggest thinking about the physical world that your story takes place in. This is where you face the blank page and get to have some fun. You can create whatever your imagination fancies, so let it run wild. Start by defining your sandbox. Is this story taking place in a galaxy-spanning empire with characters crossing multiple planets? Is it in a solar system 2 centuries from now, or a secondary world with, oh my gosh, the W's just get me, or a secondary world where mountains can talk? Are you dreaming of a hidden world of supernatural exotic creatures lurking beneath our own, or perhaps a single house containing eldritch horrors? These decisions will most likely be determined by your chosen genre, but there's always room to mix things up. Most readers are open to being surprised and having their expectations subverted. Many even welcome it. How about a haunted house set on a spaceship where the artificial intelligence goes rogue and ancient beings lurk behind the scenes? This could apply to both 2001: A Space Odyssey and Event Horizon, oddly enough. Interesting. Okay. So I've heard about this sandbox thing. Since I am a pantser, I kind of world build as I am writing the story. And as for filling in the plot holes of the world building, that's what I do after I finish my first draft and I'm working on the second draft. That's where sort of like the bulk of the world building happens. And sort of making sure things are believable and all that stuff. I'm doing hand gestures and you can't see me, so what's the point? So I've heard about this sandbox thing. You think of it like a sandbox, and there is your land, and you think, okay, what is this setting? Where are we right now? Are we in a galaxy? Are we on the desert? Are we in the ocean? Just sort of the very basic beginning, and that's what you start with. And you build up in that sandbox. You build up inside. I'm doing hand gestures and you can't see me. Why do I even bother? So yeah, I've heard of that. And so he's not saying anything weird here, this sandbox thing, because I've heard of it. I've heard of people who are like world builders, like they don't really write novels, but they build worlds. Maybe it's for future games or something like that, but they just build worlds, and they do this sort of, I think it's even called like the sandbox method. I think someone created this, someone's talked about it, some famous fantasy world building person, I don't know, but I feel like I remember something like that. Don't take my word for it. So that's the where of world building. And it has, is this part of the section? We were gonna put that as part of this section. Okay. Now you have your canvas, let's start painting. Let's think a little more about the details of your physical place. Have a go at sketching out the geography of your fantasy world. This is a really important step and brings up lots of crucial world building questions which you'll want to answer before you dive too deep into the story. Ask yourself, how does the terrain influence your story? Spend time establishing the physical laws and parameters such as its size, geography, climate, and natural resources. What features are there? Decide on the shapes and locations of continents, islands, oceans, mountains, space stations, planets. The choices you make here will impact your whole tale, as characters, locations, and plot events will be affected by the environment in which they occur. Think about the specifics of your world early on. I see, yes. So as someone who was a pantser and does world building as I go, I mean, I am thinking about these things as I go. So it's not like I'm not doing any world building in the beginning. So I am thinking, okay, where are my characters standing in this first scene? And what kind of world is around them? So I am thinking, okay, maybe they live in a sort of really sort of tribal kind of village in the middle of a forest. How advanced are they? So I think about, okay, so they have these trees, and okay, they use the trees as part of their battle tactics. So when other clans or tribes come and ambush them, these other clans don't really have a lot of trees where they live. But my main character's clan does, and so she's going to be utilizing these trees as part of her attack strategy. So then I think, okay, well, what kind of weapons do they have? And in that same thought, I think about, okay, how much technology do they have? Like, do they have electricity? Do they have lanterns? Do they use lanterns? Do they use gas? Do they, like, how do they cook their food? And so if they use gas, like, do they like weld metal? And where do they get their metal from? So so I do think about that, and I think about, okay, so they are in a forest, but where is this forest? Like, is this forest like the only green patch of green in their entire world? Or is there other parts of the world that have green patches? What if there's a field which extends into dry rocky plains? Do they have mountains? Are there mountain climbing tribes? What kind of advanced or not advanced technology do they have? So, and then I start really thinking about, okay, how all these characters are using their terrain, how they are living in their physical space, and I really do think of world building in terms of the characters. I'm sort of like zoning in on the characters, just focusing on the characters, and then just little by little expanding what I can see around them. Yeah, what I can see around them, I just expand what I can see around them, and little by little, I can see the ground that they're standing on, the environment behind and in front of them, and then further on beyond their territory, like what does it look like, and beyond that territory, what does that look like? And I think of all the characters that are inside the territory and what they're doing and what kind of jobs they have and all kinds of things that are affected by their environment. When you think about it, so many things are affected by our environment. How we live is affected by affected by our environment, which is very interesting when you think about it, because some people live in houses. Some people live on houseboats. Some people live on these houses that have like wooden, like they're like stilts in the middle of the water. Some people live in like tent type of things out in the desert. Maybe they are nomads. Some people live in huts and stuff, built out of straw or mud. And they live in like a rainforest. Maybe they are a tribe in the rainforest. So it really, where you are, your terrain, your environment really affects how you live, what you eat, your lifestyle. Everything is different. It's also different between the city and the countryside. People living in high risers in the middle of a technology advanced city versus people living in the countryside where they might still be using wells. All kinds of things to think about. All kinds of things when you think about it. It's very interesting. How your fantasy world determines your story. So what kind of features will impact the way your world works? I probably already went through some of them. Well, for example, a resource-rich region could mean a wealthy culture, or one that's constantly under threat as others want the wealth for themselves. Or if you're writing science fiction, you might decide you have wormholes that allow faster than light, FTL. I didn't know that had an acronym. FTL travel. See, I'm not a science fiction writer, so I don't know anything about the science fiction writer world. Faster than light, FTL travel, or that the inhabitants live in vast megastructures or in the atmosphere of gas giants. Seemingly small decisions can have an outsized effect on the fabric of your entire novel. I like that. Seemingly small decisions can have an outsized effect on the fabric of your entire novel. Fabric of your entire novel. Such a good phrase. I love that phrase. So, megastructures. I recently watched a movie called Moonfall. And it came out in 2022. I watched it on Amazon Prime. It was about the moon being a megastructure. So I saw this word and I thought, I actually know what a megastructure is, or at least what people say a megastructure is. I mean, is it real? I don't know. I'm not going to say you're wrong, but, Have fun here, but create with intention. Your choices will affect your writing in fundamental ways. If you create a huge landmass for a secondary world fantasy, your characters may have to travel hundreds or thousands of miles by horseback, What are they doing during this time? What are other characters up to? And how are you showing all of this to the reader? Unexpectedly, a single choice regarding the geography of your world could mean your story takes place over years rather than weeks. I've realized that one of my worlds that I created may be a little bit more vast than I had thought it would be, because when I started thinking about terrain, okay, it's actually a lot of land to travel over and not a lot of water, bodies of water. So then I thought, okay, people living there probably wouldn't even bother to build ships. Like if the people, the humans, ride on these, they're like hoverboards. So they fly around. So even if they did have a large body of water, they wouldn't even think about creating boats. They might not even know what a boat is. Because these humans, they are hundreds of generations after humans first arrived at this certain planet. So maybe they learn about boats like in history, like their ancestors had boats. I don't know, but maybe they don't even know, but they don't even have boats. They don't even know anything about boats. Because if there's not a lot of body of water, then why would they even need it, right? Even if there are rivers, they might not even use. But what would they use? If the rivers aren't wide enough, they probably wouldn't even use boats. Would they use kayaks? I just thought of that. Would they have like kayaks? But there are no waterfalls. Unless you want to go down the waterfall that goes into the hole, which is like a hole of like gravity pulling you down, which is not pretty. I have to think more about my terrain. I don't think about that at all. Even though my characters are traveling, they're walking, and it seems like they get to one place or another pretty quickly, but actually I think it's a lot of walking. Actually, they probably go camelback, maybe, because there are some desert areas and there are camels, or there are creatures like camels. Maybe camelback. Similarly, if you don't have FTL, faster than light, then you will have to consider time dilation and the centuries it takes to cross interstellar space. However, these aren't just constraints, they're opportunities for new stories too. One example comes to mind right away. How Demands the Forever War uses time dilation to brilliant effect. It does. Oh, okay. I don't know. I've never read this book before. The setting as a character, your world can be considered a character in its own right in that the setting is integral to the story. The events of your plot couldn't take place without that specific world. Yes, I read a book by Josiah, I almost forgot his name, Josiah Bancroft, the Books of Babel series, the first book. It takes place in this place called the Tower of Babel, and it's an incredibly tall tower that nobody knows how tall it is, and it's a whole world in there. It's so intricately built, but if that world did not exist, there would be no story. That world is a whole character itself. It's very fascinating. Also, I would never want to end up there. If you read the first book, you will know what I mean. I won't tell you why, but I don't want to end up there. Don't want to end up stuck there either. N.K. Jemison's. Oh, N.K. Jemison. I actually reacted to an article that N.K. Jemison wrote on their website about their writing process, I think it was. And this was a suggested article. Oh, if you want to suggest an article to me, like, oh, hey, I found this article, I want you to look at it. I have a Google form that you can enter and request. But the thing is, I also have a lot of articles that I want to cover. So I don't know when I'll get to it, but I'll get to it eventually, I promise. N.K. Jemisin's The Broken Earth trilogy is a great example of this. Think about the genres of post-apocalyptic science fiction, secondary world fantasy, or haunted house horror. What would the novels be without their settings? A good setting can be as memorable as the characters who explore it. Think about Narnia, Hogwarts, or the USS Enterprise. Just saying those names can transport you directly to those fantasy worlds. Yes, Narnia is another great example. Thank you for giving examples. Goodness gracious. Goodness heavens gracious. I don't know whatever else I'm going to add to that. Writing advice articles. I don't know why a lot of them are so stingy with their examples. Like, what? Did you have to write this in 5 minutes or something? But even then, couldn't you have added some examples? Thank you, Craig, for adding examples to this first part of this article. Let's hope that you're consistent. But if it's someone who's worked with authors, I bet he has a lot of examples on his noggin. He can give them quickly while writing. I think other people, they don't have examples on their noggin, so they just write something and then they think, oh, I'm not going to give an example because I don't have any examples, but I bet this does exist because I feel like it does. And then you read it and you're like, but I want examples. Like, where did you hear this? How is this true? Why? Give me something. So I always think, why don't they give examples? Craig gives examples. Sorry for scrolling so much and making you dizzy. Craig gives so many nice, good examples. Thank you, Craig, for doing that. So the setting as a character, I totally agree with that. As I said about the Tower of Babel from Josiah Bancroft. Narnia, also good example. Hogwarts. Those types of worlds you can't do without because the plot revolves around the world so intricately. So that was the where of world building. So we talked a lot about setting and terrain and how the environment can affect the characters and the plot and everything like that. It's very nice. So it's been very nice. It's been very nice. I may have been a little bit suspicious about the novelry, but this article seems really nice so far. Drink of water. The what of world building. The next step in our journey to I have so much trouble with words with W's and R's. Or if there's a W word and an R word after that. I don't mean R word in any particular way, okay? The next step in our journey to powerful world building is the what. What? Once you have a good sense of the fantasy world where your novel is set, it's time to think about the tools your main characters will have available to interact with that world. Okay, so this is getting into what I was talking about technology and stuff, because I see it right here coming up. In the previous section, we saw that depending on what kind of world you've created, the availability of different magical or technological abilities will dramatically change how you're able to tell your tale. We did? Availability of different technological, magical. Well, I guess, I mean, they did talk about faster than light travel. But magical, I don't think we talked about anything magical, did we? I don't know if we talked about anything about that, but anyway. Maybe this section was supposed to be somewhere else. Who knows? I'm a little bit confused because we talked about technological abilities. I don't think we talked about magical abilities, or did I miss that? Develop a magic or technology system. With science fiction and fantasy world building, you need to think carefully about the rules and limitations of the magic or technology in your world. When you're creating them, ensure they're consistent and coherent. Physics and technology. Okay. How much? Okay, it's not too bad of a section. Have to see how long it is because sometimes I might want to break it up. Physics and technology. In both, let me scroll down a little bit so you guys can see nicely if you want to see. In both fantasy and science fiction, you should think about the laws of physics and what level of technology you want to use. Consider how technology works and, importantly, what it is used for. Italics. Why was it created and who created it? With science fiction, this can lead to exciting possibilities. I see a word that I don't know. With ancient progenitor civilizations, or the idea of a forgotten knowledge, where people use technology but have no idea how to build it. This is also true for fantasy novels. What level of technology do you want your world to have? Traditionally, fantasy novels have been set in a pseudo-medieval world, but this is changing in recent years, which is exciting. The genre appears to be going through its very own industrial revolution. Yeah, I've been seeing a trend, not people, moving away from medieval Europe. I put it in quotes, air quotes. You didn't see me do that because you can't. Air quotes. Medieval Europe. And been seeing some like other cultures being represented, which is very nice. I just yawned. I don't know about Industrial Revolution, but maybe. There was kind of a trend of steampunk a long time ago, but is that coming back? I don't know. I wish steampunk would come back more. I want to read steampunk that doesn't have romance in it. That's my personal preference. So if you want to write a book of steampunk that doesn't have romance in it, let me know if you're going to do that because I would love to read it. I'm just not all about that romance, romantasy. I'm just not all about that. Why was it created and who created it? I read a book that was called The Markswoman, and there was this sense that there was a past civilization. This took place in like a desert. And then there were these structures that indicated that there was some past civilization with this very powerful technology that they had destroyed themselves with. But their structures, some of their structures are left over. And some of the people are able to use some of their sort of technology that was left behind as like some like teleportation device or something like that. So yeah, I do like that sort of, I guess it's a trope of the sort of previously super intelligent ancient civilization that existed in the past, but doesn't exist anymore. But people today are still able to kind of use their technology, but they don't entirely know how it was created or who exactly created it. There's some mystery there. And a lot of the buildings left over sort of, dilapidated, old, run-down buildings. I like run-down buildings. I like abandoned buildings. There's a kind of mystery about them. There's a story there. I feel like that if I walked around there, that I would be able to find interesting stories. I've never walked around an abandoned building. It's also really dangerous to do, You could fall, you could hurt yourself. Maybe there's toxins lying around. So it's not actually safe to walk around in abandoned buildings, but I would like to walk near an abandoned building. That might be nice. That would be fun. Or like an abandoned tunnel. Like, I think that's safe. Is it? I don't know. Anything abandoned is probably not safe. It could fall on you. You could be squashed, and that's not going to be good. Is it going through an industrial revolution? I don't know if you call it industrial revolution, but that's his turn, not mine. Magic systems. Everybody's favorite magic systems. With magic systems, you have magic systems. I don't know what happened there. With magic systems, you have some more flexibility. Do you want to explain everything and have the magic system in your fantasy story feel more like a science, such as Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere novels? Or will your magical elements feel more nebulous and unknowable, as is the case with the Lord of the Rings series? Each comes with pros and cons and will significantly change your story. The key thing to remember is that the more you explain, the more you have to explain, which makes keeping things consistent difficult and also opens the door to potential plot holes. Yeah, I keep my magic systems very loose. Although there are some magic systems I have that are more, that have very strict rules, but they're not like a lot. There's not a lot that I need to do for them. I intentionally make them very simple to understand. I'm losing my voice. Yeah, so the more you explain, the more you have to explain. I have a world that has 2 moons. Sometimes people say, so how does the tide work? Well, there's no oceans. But how does the 2 moons, like waxing and waning, the 2 moons, they don't wax and wane? How does that work, magic? How does that magic work? I don't know. So that's where I ended at. That's just where it ends. I don't know how the magic works. The people who live on the planet don't even know how that works either. But it works. So that's all you're going to get from me. Yep, that's it. Something to keep in mind when establishing magical abilities is how they may be used other than how your characters are using them. Many fantasy writers at some point realize they've unintentionally created the opportunity for an easy solution to a character's problems if that character just used their power in a certain way. When the character doesn't do this, the reader picks up on it and the author's hand in the story becomes more obvious. Think very carefully and broadly about how your magic works and how it can be applied in the key events and even the more minor moments of your plot. Yeah, so one of my worlds with the magic systems that are more loose, there is this sorcerer race, and they are able to teleport with magic. But I give a limit because they can only teleport to places that they can see with their eyesight and places that they can really clearly remember. They have to really clearly, like the picture in their mind has to be just so super clear. And it depends on how strong their magic is, how far they can go. So even if they can see it, like if their magic isn't so strong, they can only go to a certain location that's close to that location that they want to go to. So they might have to teleport once or twice. But the thing about teleporting is that it actually takes a lot of energy out of them. So even if they can see far and go far, maybe they don't want to, because if the magic is like a muscle for them. So if they use too much of it, they're just going to be too tired, too exhausted to teleport again. So only really, really very powerful sorcerers can teleport many times at once. So that's where I gave the, what was I talking about? Why did I bring this up? Oh yes, easy solution to a character's problems. The teleportation is like an easy solution to a character's problems. Like if they don't have anything, any like vehicle to get them from one place to another, or they can't walk, they just teleport. Easy. But it's not easy because they could be exhausted. And the place they arrive could be hostile. And if they are exhausted, they can't use magic at all. So they will be extremely vulnerable. So that's how I tried to make it. It's an easy solution, or so we thought, kind of situation. And you can see as I'm reacting to this article with my own examples, that makes this an article is a good article. I'm not adding on to this article what it's missing. I'm adding on to this article because I agree what he's saying. It makes sense, okay? You do need to think, okay, is this magic not solving all the characters' problems so easily? Like, oh, they can just do that. And then if they don't do it, the reader be like, why didn't they just do that from the start? Like, I don't know why they had to go through all this struggle when they could have just done it with magic. What was all that struggle stuff about? The author. Okay, the author just wanted to write their struggles. Okay, I see. Well, that's not a very good book. That's what they would think. So if you don't want that, then you need to give like limitations and flaws to the magic and think about, okay, is this too easy? How can the character use this in other situations? And then you put on those limitations so they can't do those things so easily. Like my example of using magic through teleportation. Teleportation just takes up a lot of magic, and they get tired. And it takes them a while to regenerate their magic energy. So it's not like they rest for like 2 seconds and they can do it again. They can, but then they'll have to rest even longer after the second time, especially if they're not so strong yet, because it's a muscle. Okay, be clear, consistent, and purposeful. The key things to consider with both technology and magic are what can it do, what can't it do, and how could people misuse it or use it to gain power or profit. Remember, it will always be people using the magic or tech, and they won't always use them how you would like. Be consistent. Don't use either magic or technology to solve problems for your character unless it comes about through effort and conflict. And just like the unintended consequence of having your characters needing to spend months of page time crossing a mega continent, think about how easy or difficult it is to learn the magic or technology. Usually in science fiction, the tech is just a part of the world like it is for us, so this isn't an issue. However, in fantasy, your characters will not be familiar with magic. If it's difficult to learn, how long does it take? How do they learn? Once again, these kinds of questions can lead to new stories. Ask how they learn magic and then write a novel answering it. J.K. Rowling did this and created a global phenomenon that is the Harry Potter series. We all know what we feel about J.K. Rowling right now. So, in fantasy, your characters will not be familiar with magic if you want to do that. I saw this and I thought, no. What if the characters are already born in, like, what if the character already knows the magic by the time the story starts and I start writing the story and it begins and they already know the magic? So it's not going to be like they're not learning it. They already know it, but they're just limited in other ways. Why does it always have to be this learning stuff? Why does the character always have to go to school? I'm sort of tired about the character realizing he has magic, so he has to go to a school to learn how to use it plot. I know it's really popular. I was reading this middle grade fantasy. I kind of stopped reading it right now because I just don't feel like learning about the school situation. It's just all the school thing again. It's the character who doesn't know that they have this power, but then they realize that they do have this power. Oh, they go to the school and they have to learn about the school and go to classes, and this is how the reader is also going to learn about the magic and the powers and all that stuff and the history of the world and all the things and the great stuff. And it's nice, but it's a lot of info dump It's an info dump gimmick, really. This going to school stuff is info dump gimmick, and I'm kind of tired of seeing it. Maybe kids who still go to school, like I don't go to school anymore, but kids, like elementary school kids, maybe they relate because they're still going to school. I just don't feel like reading it anymore. I'm kind of tired of it. I wish people would write something else. Like maybe the character already knows how to do the magic, somewhat. There's this book that I'm better reading. I should probably start reading the next version. And it's about a character who already has some level of control on their magic, and they go to school to learn even more magic. I like that. That is better than I know nothing, and so I'm going to school. Like, there are some things that this character already knows about the magic and about her own magic, and then she is going to school to learn even more about it, and that's fine. I like that. But going to school not knowing anything, it's just so much info dump. I just don't like it anymore. I'm just tired of seeing the same-ish stuff all the time. Sometimes you might not need to develop extensive systems of either magic or technology and just have it in the background. Don't add these elements to your novel or short story because you think they're supposed to be there. They should serve a purpose. If magic exists or a technology has been invented, be very clear with yourself, as well as the reader, about what it adds. Yes, you don't have to do all this magic system stuff if you don't want to technology, how it was created. So if you don't have to do that, it can just be sitting there. Just sitting there. You can know, you yourself can know how it was created. Like, I have this world where there are these gigantic portals made of magic. I know how they were created. All the other people, they don't really, I mean, some of them might know, but the reader is not going to find out how the portals were created. They're just there. And just people just use them. It's like how they get from place to place. They just use these portals. So, you can do that. And if you decide to write a story in which, like, magic is, like, the main focus, in that story, I do explain how the portals were created and what kind of magic is used to create the portals. Because that is what the main character is interested in. Like, he likes to study about the history of his magic, how magic came about, and he likes learning about those things. And so there was a scene where he's explaining to someone about the portals, like, did you know about this and about this? Currently, some of the magic that is used to create these portals is actually forbidden. Did you know that? And it ties in with some other forbidden magic that is involved in the story. So that's how I did it. I feel like this video was getting really, really long. But, I mean, it's needed. It's needed. We need to do it like this, okay? Okay. Pause. The who of world building. Finally, we get to the people. I know, right? It took a while. But now we have a world and a way to interact with it. So let's get populating. It's important to establish the basics of where and what before you get to this step of your world building, because those elements are some of the building blocks of society and culture. People respond to their environment, and how they respond tells you so much about them. Do they choose to live in harmony with nature or dominate it? Does a society embrace technology, worship it, or fear it? Once again, these questions are where stories are born. Society's relationship with technology and knowledge is the basis for Asimov's Foundation series. Likewise, the way the Fremen adapted to the sands of planet Arrakis is fundamental to Frank Herbert's Dune series. Fremen? Is it Fremen? Planet Arrakis. I know how to say that one because I heard of it. Was Fremen? I don't know. Create unique cultures. Before creating a new fictional culture or society, consider why you want to do so. What themes or ideas do you want to explore through your world building? I don't think you have to think about theme in the beginning. I mean, that's my personal opinion. People are divided on this. Some people think that you need to think about what themes you want to explore, what ideas. And some people say that theme is something that readers are supposed to find themselves. You just tell the story and let blah 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 readers figure out the theme. What aspects of your own culture or society do you want to change or subvert? What perspectives or experiences do you want to highlight? By starting with a purpose, you can create a more intentional and meaningful world, and one that has something to say about the real world. Do you really want to? I don't know where my voice went with that. Do you really want to do that? I don't think you have to. You don't have to think about theme. You don't have to say, okay, what kind of message do I want to get across? You don't have to think about that. The readers think about that. But some people disagree with that. Some people think that you should think about theme. You should think about it, and that's important because then you have to be consistent throughout the story with the theme, and they think that that's important for that theme to be very crystal clear to the reader. You can do that. You don't have to. That's my opinion. I'm repeating myself, but it's important. History, customs, religion, values, politics, relationships, and attitudes to other cultures. These are all important to think about. What about the power dynamics between different groups? Who holds power and who is marginalized? Who are our major rulers and how did they get there? How do the different social classes behave towards one another? I read that and I just immediately thought about one of my worlds that I've been talking about this entire time, and I did think about these things by writing multiple books taking place in the same world. Because I'm a pantser and I world build as I go, I thought, okay, I'm going to write a story taking place from the point of view of a different race and see what I find out about them. And I found out a lot of very interesting things about them. And I thought, okay, this is how this part of the world is like. Okay, I'm going to try another race and see what happens there. And maybe take it back in time a few hundred years and see what it was like then. Oh, that is very interesting. All these different customs and values and religions and attitudes to other cultures. Yeah, all kinds of really interesting things. Oh, the rulers, how did they get there? Oh, maybe I should think about that. I'll write a story where I think about that. That's how I do it. Of all the elements that shape your story, the cultures you create will have the most impact on your characters. Oh, yes, it does. Certainly does. Culture, really. I mean, you think about like culture, you think about like etiquette, like what order you're supposed to use your utensils for like French cuisine, different than if you use chopsticks in Japan. You just pick them up and you just use them. Those are cultures. Those are based like cultures. They have history and stuff like that embedded in them. It's a very interesting culture. Really affects, just like environment that affects various parts of our life. Culture also affects various parts of our life. We might not notice it all the time. You might think, okay, I don't really follow culture. We do without realizing it, I think, a lot of time. These elements can help you. M. Banks's best-selling science fiction series is literally called The Culture for a reason. These elements can help you create distinct characters, especially if you look at how you can use contrast to create conflict and characterization. For example, if you have a main character who is a pacifist in a warrior culture, there's a story right there. Thank God for these examples. It makes a lot of sense, when you read this fluffy explanation and then you get to an example. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I see. Yes, there is a story right there. To create a rich and believable fictional culture or society, draw inspiration from real-world cultures and societies. You said society twice. Do your research and borrow elements from different cultures, but do so respectfully and without appropriation. Avoid using real-world cultures as a sort of world building template for your fictional universe without understanding and acknowledging their complexity and diversity. Avoid stereotypes, prejudices, and harmful tropes. Yes, important to note. How about examples here too? I mean, I know what you're talking about, but like historic Black culture, tribal, like Native American tribal cultures. Like if you're not from that culture, you don't understand it, do your research. Talk to people. People will love that you've asked them. Sometimes, because I live in Japan, I grew up in Japan for the most part, people who know that about me would come to me like asking things about Japan. I am so glad that they asked, because I do not like seeing wrong things, quote, wrong, in stories that are taking place in Japan. Especially names. Like, you can't just make up a name and say it sounds Japanese. That's not how Japanese works. We have these Chinese characters, and each character has a certain meaning. And you can't just stuff them together and say, okay, this is good enough. That's not how it works. So I appreciate when people like ask, okay, how do these names make sense? Or like, I want my characters to go to a Japanese school. This is what I know about it. Is this correct? Do you have anything to add? I really appreciate when people ask. So go to those people, go to writing groups. There are definitely people from various cultures with various backgrounds. Ask them questions. Ask them. They'd be so happy to tell you. Ask them nicely, of course. They'd be so happy to tell you. So yeah, do your research. That's all you gotta do. And it's very interesting. It's very fun, too. You might make a new friend or two. Who knows? Include diverse characters. Okay, here is the discussion about diversity. As an author, you should do your best to represent the real world around us, whether you're writing science fiction, fantasy, or horror. If you find that all the people in your fictional worlds look, speak, and act the same, it's worth re-examining your world building. The real world is full of variety and difference, both geographically and in the people who inhabit it. This difference is exciting. Having everyone the same is rather boring unless you're choosing that for a specific purpose. For example, if you're writing a dystopian sci-fi novel about conformity. But even then, you could include diverse characters, because the interesting approach would be to examine how those who don't fit in struggle to conform. By including characters of different cultures, races, oh my gosh, where did that go? By including characters of different cultures, races, ethnicities, genders, sexual orientations, and abilities, you allow readers to see themselves reflected in the stories they are reading, which can be incredibly empowering and validating. As the author, you have the power to broaden readers' perspectives and understanding of different cultures, beliefs, and experiences. And from a storytelling perspective, it's important as it adds depth and richness to the world building and storytelling of your novel. For example, N.K. Jemisin's The Fifth Season can I don't know how to say it, sorry. The Grace of Kings, Becky Chambers' The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, and Nnedi Okorafor, sorry, I don't know how to say your name, Binti, all show that everyone can be the hero of their own story, and that representing the rich variety of backgrounds can create some of the most exciting stories and worlds. I would like to add, because I was waiting for him to say it, but he didn't. Don't be diverse for the sake of being diverse. Don't do that, because I read a book. I'm going to say which book it is. All the Birds in the Sky by Charlie Jane Anders. In my opinion, there were quite a few moments where there was diversity for the sake of diversity. It's like there was no reason to mention that some character is ace or that's the one that I remember. That some character is ace. There was no reason to mention that. It didn't bring up any discussions in the book, even though I felt like it could have. Didn't bring up any discussions. Didn't add to the plot. Like, why are you telling me this? It's not like I have anything against people who are ace, because I'm also ace, and that's why I saw, okay, there's an ace character. But then that's all that they were. They were just an ace character. And I'm like, but aren't they more than that? Like, what? Why bring it up, right? Like, why do I need to know? I have a character who is bisexual, but them being bisexual has nothing to do with what happens to them in the story, so I don't even mention it in the story. That's just something that I know, and now you know too, but you don't know which character it is. There is a character I have who is gay, but him being gay is actually somewhat, it's not somewhat, it's quite attached to the plot, because some guy that he falls in love with turns out not to be so very nice and starts foiling with some plans and some evil organization involvement and some police involvement and all kinds of interesting stuff going on in this fantasy world. But this main character falling in love with this guy who was actually evil sort of adds to the plot, because he doesn't know that he's evil. So he trusts him, you know? He's just blind with love, trusts him, and gets really, really hurt after that. So it also contributes to that character's character development. The fact that it was, but it didn't, I mean, he's not gay for the sake of gay, you know? He's there, it's not diversity for the sake of diversity. The diversity is talked about in the story. It's not just about this, you know, organization and stuff like that. There is discussion about that, because there's various sexual orientations in that story. So, Craig didn't mention it here, but he should have said, don't be diverse for the sake of diversity. Just really don't do that, because that book, All the Birds in the Sky, was good. So, kind of good, kind of interesting. But there was moments where it was just diverse for the sake of being diverse. Not just that ace example, but there were other moments where I thought, Charlie Jane Anders, please, don't do this. Don't do this, please. The why of world building. We're almost done, guys. Hang in there. When we create any fictional world in any genre, it's always worth interrogating our why. Why have we chosen to examine a particular place, community, a series of events? Why have the systems and structures we include come to be? Why do people make the choices they do? And when you're diving as deep into world building as the science fiction fantasy genres allow, this question is arguably bigger than ever. History informs the present. While some speculative fiction uses and adapts real-world history, fictional historical context can also act as a cultural geography upon which your characters interact and live. A well-developed history can contribute to a sense of realism and make your world building more immersive, providing a backstory that explains how the world got to its current state. I did that with one of my worlds. It helps to establish the credibility and depth of your created world, providing a strong foundation that will enable your readers to engage with your story more fully. To create this sense of realism, describe significant historical events such as wars, political struggles, or natural disasters, and show how these events have shaped the culture, beliefs, and customs of your characters. For example, in George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire series, the history of the Seven Kingdoms is full of battles, betrayals, and alliances that have left a lasting impact on the current state of affairs. A well-crafted history can also provide essential context for your story. By understanding the past, your readers can better appreciate the present and the challenges faced by your characters. This can be particularly useful when writing stories set in secondary worlds, as it can help to ground your readers to make the world building more understandable. For example, in J.R.R. Tolkien's fantasy fiction The Lord of the Rings, the history of Middle-earth is integral to understanding the motivations and actions of the characters. A fictional history can also be used to create conflict within your story by highlighting past grievances, feuds, and rivalries. You can create tensions that add depth to your plot and drive your characters' actions. For example, in Frank Herbert's Dune, the long-standing feud between House I haven't read Dune or watched the movie, so I don't know. House Atreides and House Harkonnen is a crucial plot point that drives much of the conflict. And don't forget about cultural history. Think about art, literature, religion, and cultural traditions that have evolved over time. For example, in Ursula K. Le Guin's Earthsea series, the history of magic and the origins of the wizarding school at Roke add to the richness and complexity of the world. Okay. Yeah, the history can really give you some really good building blocks for the current stuff that is happening, which is the story that you're writing. I think that what Craig says is right. Fictional history can also be used to create conflict within your story. Like, if two races had been at each other's throats for hundreds of years, they're not actively fighting right now, but there's still some animosity there. And if one of your characters is from one of those races in the current world, maybe there are certain things that they do or say or believe that affects their actions. So that's how that can come into play. Not just, history adding richness and complexity. The history can affect your characters. Yeah, by understanding the past, your readers... No, not there. Did he say anything about characters? I don't think he did. So I'm saying something about characters. Even good stuff that happened. And maybe if two races who were getting along really, really nicely for the past 100 years, suddenly someone does something strange and that friendship is betrayed. The alliance is betrayed. And that character that was betrayed by the alliance is your main character. In everything that they do afterwards is affected by that. And also they might wonder what is the history, why were we getting along so well before but we're not getting along anymore right now? Like, what happened to us, and that could be something that either they know what happened or they don't know what happened, and that could be a story, and you can go all in with that. So yeah, he's just talking about adding richness and giving depth and all that stuff, but it really affects your character's actions. The how of world building. This is the last part. Now you have a really strong sense of your world. It's time to think about how you can convey it to your readers. How can you make an imaginary setting really immersive? Pay attention to the details of your world. Think about the small details that make your world come alive, such as fashion, cuisine, and language. These details will help your readers feel like they are really there and make your world seem three-dimensional. This includes names of streets, locations like theaters or parks, space stations, or moons. It's good practice to avoid generic terms when describing things unless you've already introduced them or they're really not important. So, add a touch of specificity. Remember, this is a real place. For example, if you're in London, you might say Jenny walked down Oxford Street. That's how you should approach your world. Is Craig UK based? I mean, because if I live in Japan, but a lot of my reading is in English, so I might say, for example, if you're in New York, you might say, I don't know any streets in New York, Jenny walked through Times Square. That's the first example that I would think of. Or I live in Japan, so I might think if you're in Japan, you might say Jenny took a trip to see Tokyo Skytree or something. This is making me think, does Craig live in the UK? I don't know why Craig sounds like a UK, like a British name to me, but I don't know, maybe I'm stereotyping or something. And I shouldn't be doing that. When I saw Oxford, I immediately thought of Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials. But that's not what he was talking about here. That's not what Craig was talking about. Use all the senses when you're world building. Remember to engage all of the senses in your descriptions, not just sight. We've all grown up consuming stories through film and TV and often come to reading later. As a result, we tend to imagine stories cinematically. It's a movie inside your head that you then describe, but as a writer, you have a whole range of tools at your disposal to evoke this fantastic world you've created. Consider how things feel, smell, sound, and taste. Yes, very good to think about your 5 senses when you're writing the story. 5 senses or 6 senses, if you want. Consistency is queen. Make sure that the different elements of your world are consistent with one another. Avoid contradictions or plot holes that could break the suspension of disbelief. How would you be consistent? Make sure different elements are consistent with one another. Could break suspension or disbelief. Shadow and Bone series had a bunch of plot hole things with the magic and stuff like that I was like, really? So, for me, an example would be that series. That's, for me, it would. Avoid info dumping. While it's important to establish the details of your world, you don't want to overload your readers with too much information at once. Introduce elements gradually and only include what is necessary for the story. Oh, that's it? Okay. Well, at least you have a different article linking to avoid info dumping. Thought you were going to talk more about it, but I guess not. The iceberg principle. Ultimately, the purpose of world building is to serve your story. Don't get so caught up in the details that you lose sight of the plot and characters. A good rule of thumb is that 90% of your world building will be made out of sight, while only 10% will be explained or even shown to your reader. But don't worry, all that world building work won't be wasted. It just means there's the opportunity to tell more stories and review new mysteries in your world. Okay, so you said we need to think about all these descriptions and all these details. Think about the small details. And now you're saying, don't think about the small details. Don't get so caught up in them. Look who's contradicting themselves. I'm losing my voice. And lastly, remember to stop. That's why I stopped. Well, that's not why I stopped, but you will do a lot of world building and it's incredibly fun, but it's easy to spend all your time building your world and never actually finish, or sometimes even start writing your book. Okay. World building is a lot of work. There's a lot of details. You need to think about all these details, but don't think about it too much, because 90% of the world building readers will not see it. They will only see 10%. And remember to stop. Remember to actually start writing your book. I know, it feels a little bit contradictory, don't you think? So that was the how of world building. There is a bit bit of a thing here. Writing for children. Here are 3 tips from Piers Torday on world building and middle grade fiction. I'm not going to go into this. This looks like a completely separate article attached to the end here. So we're going to stop here. Remember to stop. Yes, we are going to stop here. So we went through the how, the why, the who, what, and where of world building by Craig Leyenaar. April 16, 2023. World building, who, what, where, why, and how. Okay. Yeah, I don't have anything to say about Atlas. Like, remember to stop. As I said, I'm going back to this point because I want to say one last thing here. I'm a pantser, so as I said, that I create the world as I go along, and then in the second draft, this is where I sort of fill in the plot holes, do more world building. It's probably by draft 3 that the world is mostly there. I might even do world building on the side at this point because a lot of things are sort of set in stone. So for me, I'm thinking about all these things that he just talked about while I'm writing the story. But if you're someone who does planning or you want to think about the world before you start writing the story, yes, I've heard many people who do that say that they don't know when to stop world building. I knew a writer who did world building for 10 years. And then I don't know how she did it, but she wrote a 100,000 word novel in 1 month. Maybe it helped that she worked on it for 10 years. But I don't know, working on it for 10 years. You know, you have to stop somewhere, right? You have to. If you want to write your story, you just gotta okay, I'm just gonna stop, write my story. Since I'm a pantser, I don't know what to say to those of you who just can't seem to stop. Maybe join some Facebook writing groups and ask people what they do. I don't really know. Sorry if I can't help you much there, because we have 2 different writing styles, or 3 different writing styles going here. We have the planner, we have the pantser, and we have the plancer. Oh, by the way, that reminds me, I'm planning on creating a video that is a compilation of all the pantser, planner related type of videos. Compiled. Post that sometime. I don't know when, but we'll see what happens. Yeah, so that's the end of this article. That's the end. Craig Leyenaar, April 16, 2023 article is done. Was it good? Yeah, I think it was pretty good. I don't know if I would give it a 5-star rating. 4.5 maybe. Because there were just some examples that I don't really know these books very well. So if you say that, oh, they use time dilation to brilliant effect, like maybe say a little bit more about how it's brilliant effect. I don't know if that would be spoilery or not, but I feel like you could say something about it without being spoilery, you know? Anyway, that's the end of this article. What did you think about this article? Do you agree what Craig says? Have you tried world building before writing the story? Do you usually world build before writing the story? Let me know in the comments. And will I give you a secret word? Yes, I will give you a secret word. Your secret word, making it to the end of this video, is camel. And hope you have a lovely rest of the day. Keep hydrated, and you will hear me in the next video. The fox is out.